In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can implement less screen time for your children, why it's important, and how you can go about doing it. Welcome back to the Daily Connoisseur. My name is Jennifer, and I just want to thank everybody so much for your great support of my new book, Connoisseur Kids: Etiquette, Manners, and Living Well for Parents and Their Little Ones. Today I'm going to be discussing screen time and your children. It's a topic that I discuss in this new book, and it's a very important topic, something that we all need to think about as parents. So there was a recent article from WebMD this year called "Can Too Much Screen Time Hinder Child Development?" And I just want to read a little snippet of it before we launch into the discussion. It says, young children spend a lot of time fiddling with smartphones, tapping away at tablets, and staring at TV screens. Could this time be taking away from their early physical and mental development? A new study argues that that's precisely the case. Screen time can affect how well children perform on developmental tests. Kids who are being put in front of screens are showing delayed development, said lead researcher Sherry Madigan. Watching TV, using a computer, playing video games, and goofing around with tablets or smartphones were among the types of screen time reported. We found that on average, children are viewing screens somewhere between 2 and 3 hours per day, Madigan said. This exceeds the recommended guidelines of no more than 1 hour of high-quality programming for kids between the ages of 2 and 5, set by the American Academy of Pediatrics. So that is the screen time that they recommend, no more than 1 hour a day. I feel like that's even a lot too, but that is what the doctors recommend. So they're talking about really young children and how it can develop, their brain or how it can hinder that process. And so today I'm not only talking about young children like toddlers, but also older children. Okay, so I actually think that if you consciously choose as a family to not have too much screen time, and that's going to be important for you. You don't want to just resort to it when you're exhausted, or just have the children resort to it when they're bored, right? We want them to use their minds. We want them to use their creativity and to think actively. Now, I'm not villainizing screens, and there's certainly a place for screens. My children do have access to screens, but they certainly do not use them every day. They don't even watch television every day. There are days where we go where we haven't had a screen all day long and nobody even notices. How is this possible? Well, it's because we have an atmosphere in the house that does not revolve around the television, for example. I think the parents definitely set an example here. Ben and I don't watch television at all, so they never see us laying on the sofa watching TV. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because I know that most people do that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that, if your children are constantly seeing the parents watching television, looking at their smartphone, on the tablet or whatever it is, they are going to mimic that. If they don't do it now, they're going to do it later when they grow up. So I think it's important as parents for us to be conscious about how much screen time we ourselves have. If we veg out in front of the television for 4 hours every evening, well, our children are going to do the same thing, right? So it all starts with us. We need to be reading books. We need to be doing creative things. We need to be, cooking in the kitchen and doing crafts and just doing things other than looking at screens. And so do the children. If you have a lifestyle philosophy as a family that does not revolve around the television, that is going to aid you significantly in cutting down screen time for your children. The next point I want to bring up is that when your children are bored or there's kind of a lull, there's some downtime, they're probably going to ask you if they can have a screen, if they can either watch TV or play a tablet or something like that. So it's at this point where you need to decide how you're going to deal with boredom and how you're going to deal with downtime, because it's ultimately up to the parent. And so you can allow them to have screens. A lot of parents do this where they say, all right, here's a little to-do list, and if you do X, Y, and Z, then you've earned half an hour of screen time. And so that is one way to do it. I know many parents who do that, and I have actually done that as well myself. So you can add chores in there, schoolwork in there, you can add an educational activity. So you can give them that little list and say, as you accomplish these things, let me know, we'll check it off, and then yes, you can reward yourself with some screen time. It's just important that we don't always resort to it, right? So don't cave every time they ask if you can watch TV if you're tired, and especially and you don't feel like, you know, figuring out what they should do instead. I know it's hard. I know, trust me. 4 kids, I totally get it. But it's that point where you either have to say no, and don't be afraid to say no to your children, okay? Or you need to come up with other things that they can do in order to earn that time. Let it not be the first resort is what I'm trying to say here. Also, come up with a list of activities that they can do instead of screen time. So here's an idea, and here's what we do in our house. There are certain days of the week where they know they are going to get to play their tablet or, you know, do screens. And so that's only about 2, maybe 3 days a week in our house. On the days when you are not going to have screens, and they just know this, they don't even ask, it's just not even an issue, have a list of ideas of things that they can do instead. So in Connoisseur Kids, I have a list of 50 activities that children can do instead of playing screens. I have an entire chapter on health, and a large section of it is devoted to healthy ways to spend your time as a child. So there are 50 activities that you can do instead of screens in Connoisseur Kids, and you can use that as inspiration. But also, here are some more ideas that I can share with you right now. Any type of creative play is a great idea. Inspire your kids to just play. Just play. Do you remember when we were kids and our parents didn't schedule everything we did and they just told you to go play and you just used your imagination and you played? So creative play. It's okay for your children to feel bored. I think that's a good thing, because where the boredom is, that's where the creativity comes in. You know, but at the first sign of boredom, if we sit them in front of a screen and let them entertain themselves where they're not using their brain, I think that's a problem. They're not developing those, you know, critical thinking skills, those creative skills that they need in order to function in life. So we don't want to anesthetize ourselves with entertainment every time we feel bored. So creative play. Encourage them, you know, they could put on a play. They could practice a musical instrument. They could create drums out of your pots and pans. Mine love to do that. Another idea, and this is something that we do a lot, is audio books. I'll get out something for the children that they can do with their hands, either coloring or Play-Doh or some sort of, you know, just something they can do with their hands. And in the background, I will put on an audiobook. So usually educational ones. So we like to listen to history audiobooks. Just finished one on ancient Egypt, and right now they're learning about the ancient world as well. And they really look forward to listening to these while they color. So that's a way to also be entertained, but use your brain, use your mind, use your creativity. They could learn crocheting, they could learn how to play chess, they could learn box crafts, all sorts of ideas. My friend Elizabeth Enzor has a photography course for kids, which I will link below. And you know, for example, they could learn a photography course. You can get them a little camera and they could go around taking pictures. There's so many things that your children can do. Just find what they're interested in. The point is generally that you resort to all of these things before you go to screen time. Now, the most important thing for your children, I believe, is that they love to read. This is the most important, the dearest form of entertainment that they will have. We want to foster a love of reading in our children, and that's why I don't believe that children should play their screens at night before they go to bed. I believe that they should read, and that's what my children do every single night. So they have lots of books. Go to the library, it's all free. You can check out so many books because my kids tend to burn through them. And just have them read. That's the culture of the family. That's what they do. That's what they expect. They don't even ask for anything else. So they go to their room and lay in bed and get lost in a book. And that is the best form of entertainment. It's very important to not be stimulated by screens right before you go to sleep. That is not good for their sleep patterns and just so many other reasons. So those are some of my thoughts on children and screen time. To sum it all up, you should create a culture in your home of learning, of loving life, of handicrafts, of resorting to all of these things that keep us whole, rather than resorting to screens first. So look to past generations for inspiration in this area, and definitely make a conscious decision to limit the screen time in your family. I hope that you enjoyed today's video and that you got some ideas out of it. And I just want to thank everybody so much for supporting my new book, Connoisseur Kids, Etiquette, Manners, and Living Well for Parents and Their Little Ones. I hope that you go out and buy the book, and please share it on social media, and if you enjoy the book, I do appreciate you reviewing it online. I just want to thank you so much for joining me again today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!